Hello, everyone. My name is Doran Christensen. I'm a Seminary and Institute coordinator in Iowa, and I'm excited to be part of a team that will be providing some mini micro trainings for every lesson throughout the school year. My first assignment is a doctrinal mastery one, 1 Corinthians 11:11, maybe the first doctrinal mastery of the school year for you. Since it's the beginning of the year, I wanted to highlight just a couple principles that I hope will be helpful throughout the year. One is this. If this doctrinal mastery passage lesson needs to be moved to a different week, be sure to teach the corresponding contextual lesson during that week as well. And so every doctrinal mastery lesson like this is preceded by more of a contextual lesson. So they're meant to go together. And so you may want to make sure that you've taught the 1 Corinthians 11 lesson before you get to this one. Next idea, if you're wondering, well, what are these lessons really about, these doctrinal mastery lessons? I would refer you to our introduction here. If you're thinking, what are we trying to do with this? The intent of this lesson is to help you increase your mastery of the teachings of 1 Corinthians 11. As you memorize, so we're going to do a little bit of memorizing the reference Greek scripture phrase. We want to explain the doctrine found in that reference. And we want to apply the principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge to a real life situation. So we're going to try to do all of those things. They are not of equal importance, so you may want to budget how much time you're going to allot to different things. I'll share just a couple ideas to get you started, but the hope of these mini micro trainings is that it would fuel the inspiration juice that would give you better ideas than what are shared here. So as we go down to possibilities, we're going to look at just a review of the doctrine. And so one of the examples is look at your hands, observe how they are same and how they are different. And if each hand can function individually, why do you need two? We're trying to remind students about the need for men and women and how we work together. So you may choose to do an activity. If so, I'd choose a brief one like this one with an airplane. You can have two students coming up. It's always fun to get students in the front of class and say, I'm going to give you 45 seconds to build an airplane. And you, student A, Joe, let's say, you're going to use both of your hands to build the airplane. And in 45 seconds, you've got to throw it. And we'll just see how it flies. Student B will say, Sally, you're going to build an airplane. You got 45 seconds. You can only use one hand. And after 45 seconds, we're going to have you throw it. If you wait too long to have them build the airplane, it may go on and on. So we're just trying to make a quick point to see how men and women, two things working together, can make something better. And so this is just a reminder. So you wouldn't want to spend too much time, but you can have some fun with it, get students awake through an airplane activity or something like that. The next activity is a memorize. And again, this is something we want students to do, but we're not going to spend the whole lesson on memorizing. One of the reminders here is you can just write it on the board and erase or something. So here we've got an example of that. 1 Corinthians 11:11, the whole thing. Maybe have them recite it together once or twice. And then you can just simply erase or block out words and have them recite it again, and then do it a little bit more and do it a little bit more. It's kind of fun. It goes pretty quick, but it helps students to practice memorizing some phrases and references for the doctrinal mastery. So after we've done those two things, we've been pretty quick. We want the bulk of our lesson to be around this practice application. We will always start our practice application with a review of the principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge. You may be tempted to skip those, but I'd encourage you not to, because we want the repetition to help those principles be written on the heart. And so that means we're going to do it again and again. And so it becomes part of the way students see the world. So the idea here is to have students record in their study journal the three principles, and then ask them to describe each principle in 2 or 3 sentences. You may want to turn to the paragraphs. Because this is the beginning of the school year, this is a good one to slow down a little bit on. There may be some phrases that they marked, or they may need to mark in their core document if they have a new journal or something that way, that we want to know, what does it really mean to act in faith or to examine concepts and questions with an eternal perspective? Especially for incoming freshmen, this is maybe their first experience with doctrinal mastery. You may need to go a little bit slower to get everybody on board. A little bit more time up front will help you later on in the school year. So don't take shortcuts on this one. Help students to really understand in brief and understandable ways what these three principles are all about. All right, our final activity is the actual practice application itself. And maybe this is where the bulk of our lesson is going to be spent. There's a handout for this one where you can give students a copy of this, and they're going to look at some scenarios, and then they're going to respond to questions under the three principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge. You can decide what's going to be best at this point in the school year. I might recommend, instead of having everybody choose different ones, maybe you read the four together as a class and you decide which one of those seems to be most relevant to their circumstance in life, and maybe it needs to be adapted. But then work on one as a class and then answer the questions together as a class. Because we're early in the year, maybe we need to do a little bit more hand-holding to make sure everybody's on the same page and we know how doctrinal mastery works. We're going to model it this time. As we get further into the school year, we can do more things in pairs and groups. But you can decide. Maybe your class is ready for that. At any rate, our hope is that students can have an experience that is relevant and real and helps them to see life and the situations that they encounter with an eternal perspective. This is the beginning of the school year. It's an exciting time. Try some things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and we'll learn and grow together. I look forward to a wonderful school year.